The boss man looks at me and he goes, Diana, you can go. I was like, okay, cool. And so I left. And well, I grabbed my things and I went and they're the two people that are regulars, Robin and Roy. That's their names, R&R. That's how I know God's telling me real rest. You need real rest. But real rest, and then he pushes me to go do something, and then he pushes me to go fill someone else's cup more, and I go. And it's okay. I'm tired. I'm exhausted, but it fills me with love and with joy when he uses me. So I go even though I'm tired. I go even though I don't want to go. I go because hi ho, it's off to work. I go. Sorry, Tara. It's funny because I always sing that song. And that when you sang that song, I'm like, okay, God, I'm listening. And there was a lot of revelations that came from your video about the clock. And I can't wait to share. I can't wait to confirm every word you've ever put down, because the words that God has me listen to, that you put out, the songs that you sing, hit my heart, hit my spirit in such a way that God reveals so much through you. And one day, we're going to get the opportunity to have a conversation, and I'm going to get to tell you everything that gave me guidance, that gave me hope, that gave me enlightenment, that gave me revelation, that gave me all the things that God was needing me to have in that moment. And not just you, but all the people that God has put in my path to help me along, to keep me encouraged, to keep me moving forward, to keep me understanding that, yes, I am hearing from him. Yes, I do understand him. Yes, he does give me these things. Yes, he does have me go in reverse. Yes, he does sound sometimes like someone that we don't want to listen to. And he's like, and you still listen because you know my voice. Even when my voice sounds like someone else, like something else, you can distinguish that it's me. You're hesitant and you're reserved, but you do what I ask. And that is what I've been teaching you. That is what, because whatever is going to try and pretend to be me is going to have a different sound. And you know the difference. And I said, yes, I do. And I know when it's not of you. And I know when it's something else. And I know when it's something else trying to pull me away from you. And, okay. So I get to, these people. And it's funny because we have a sarcastic, jolly way of talking to each other, the woman and I. And we hit it off from the moment we met. And so she looks at me and she goes, what do you mean you get to go home? And I'm like, yeah, I'm out. Peace. And she goes, oh, no, you don't. You don't get to go home. And I'm like, oh, yes, I do. I get to go home. And so I'm standing there and I'm talking and I'm like, oh, wait, forgot. I got to go get my soda before they throw it away. So I went back to the back and I got my soda. And as I was walking back, she was walking back to get a glass of wine. And she looks at my boss and she goes, what are you doing? How dare you let this woman go home? And he goes, sorry? And I said, because he knows that if he doesn't let me go home, I won't do his dishes tomorrow. And he looks at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, I won't do your dishes if you don't let me go home. Because I'll be too tired. So he knows already I'm planning on closing out the dishes tomorrow because they don't have someone to close out the dishes. And God's like, yeah, you're doing exactly what I want. And so we're having this conversation, we're having this jokingness, and I could tell my boss is feeling like uncomfortable because that's how he is. He's like my youngest son. He's a very private man, very emotional man, so he keeps his emotions very close to his heart. But when he lets you in all the way. And at first he thought that I had other intentions with him, but he's the age of my son, and to me, he's off limits. And so, and plus, I'm with God. Come on, I'm not gonna be that like that. And because the girls have tried, slandering up against him and doing all these things. And for me, it's not sexual at all. I look at him like my son. I want to teach him. I want to help him. I want to support him to be successful in his career so that he can take care of his family. Because that is the one thing about him that I respect, is that he does everything for his family so that his wife can stay home and take care of the kids, so that his wife can be a mother and a caretaker the way she's supposed to be there for the children, to teach them and to nurture them and to grow them into the people of God. And he wants to take care of her. He wants to provide for her. He wants to be a good husband. And he wants to be a good head for his family. And so I'm teaching him how to hear the voice of God without him knowing it. Oh, I love teaching. And when I get to teach someone, it is like another light that comes up. Anyway, so we go back and we're standing there and I'm like, oh, I'm really tired. I don't want to leave, but I need to leave. And they're like, oh, well, sit down. And I'm like, oh, I have to leave in 15 minutes because then I can make the bus. But God was like, sit. I was like, okay. So I sat down. And I'm sitting there. We're having a great conversation. We're talking. And they were telling me about a friend that they had lost contact with. And now they reconnected because they met up in the same restaurant. And I was like, oh, that's wonderful. That's great. And I said, and I saw you. And I was like, oh, there's Robin. I'm to her old self. And she goes, what? I'm like, yeah. You start talking to people and you're oblivious to what's going on around you. And she goes, I know. She goes, but this one is a friend. And I'm like, oh, that's fun. That's wonderful. And then they told me a story and we just kept talking. And then I'm like looking at the clock and I'm going, Father, it's getting later and later. I'm going to be on the bus like late. I don't want to miss the bus. And he goes, you won't miss the bus. And so finally I tell them, I said, hey, I got to go because I got to make the bus. And then I still have to stop at the store because I got to buy some wine because God led me to buy some wine. And I didn't want to buy wine, but he wanted me to buy wine. And so I was obedient. I did buy wine. And so I'm sitting there talking to them. And the woman's like, oh, you better go because you're going to miss the bus. And I'm like, yeah. I said, oh, I could always take an Uber from the store. I don't have to take the bus home. And she goes, oh, you're going to take an Uber? Here. And then she's asking her husband, do you have more money? And he's like, he kind of played it off. He's like, yeah, I have. No. But he didn't pull out his wallet. She pulled out her wallet. And she pulled out her money. And she gave me $5. And I look up. Because I always look up. And I look up and I'm like, thank you. And I was like, no, Robin, I can't take your money. And she goes, oh, you're going to take it or I'm going to beat you up. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And I have learned that when someone is giving me money, that's God through them giving me money. And so I took the $5, which, by the way, the $5 that she gave me covered the money that I spent buying the wine. When you're obedient, he will provide, even in the little. So I get to the bus stop. I wait for the bus. The bus comes, picks me up. I get on. I go. Out of nowhere, this man jumps out of the bushes. I saw him jump, but I didn't see that he jumped out of the bushes. It was the bus driver who asked him, did you just jump out of the bushes? And he goes, yes, ma'am. And she goes, you need to not do that because I almost went right past you. Next time you need to be at the curb and be ready to take the bus. He goes, okay. And I could tell this man had ill intentions because he kept his hoodie down and he was just sitting there. And he sat catty-corner to me. Just like the previous person who sat behind me, this person sat catty-corner to me. Acting like he wasn't paying attention. But I had my purse wrapped around me. And then God said, do you really want to lose your food? And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. The food, I don't care. And he goes, what about the puppy pads? I'm like, oh, crap, okay. So I put my hand through the straps and I grabbed my purse. And now he couldn't take either one without yanking half my arm off. So we get to the bus stop where I get off. And he saw that, because he saw me pull the string. He saw me get into position. And he got up. Now, he went ahead of me and went towards the bus stop. God sent me to the other bus stop, to the store. It wasn't a grocery store. It was a CVS. I went in. This is how I know that it's God, that he's telling me to do these things. I don't buy the full bottle of wine because I put it in my purse and a full bottle of wine doesn't fit. I buy the little, they're like box wines, but they're little ones. They look like little bottles of wine, but they're a box. And so I got there and I'm thinking it's going to be more expensive because it's not a grocery store. At the grocery stores, they keep the prices lower because they sell more. Just like the pharmacy, the Circle K's and the 7-Elevens are going to be more expensive because it's a smaller place. And so I was expecting to pay like $11, $12 because it's more expensive. It was on sale. It was $7.99. And I just looked at it and I looked over. Thank you. And he told me, go get creamer. I'm like, I don't want to carry all that. Plus, I already have the bags with the pizza and the puppy pads. Now I've got a bag. Now my backpack's gonna be full with, and I'm like, and carrying another bag. I'm like, no, I'll do it tomorrow. And he's like, fine. Guess what? This morning, when I got my coffee, I had very little milk. And when I went to pour it, the little bit of milk came out in a way that half of the milk ended up on the counter. And I look up and I said, he really wants me to be upset, doesn't he, Father? Like, he will do everything in his power to make me lose my joy, to make me not be okay with the current situation. I'm like, he's not gonna make it win. He's not gonna win. He hasn't won. He's not won. He's lost, and he should just give it up. Okay, so back to last night. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting, and I could see him staring at me. And suddenly he starts playing with his lighter, and he starts trying to burn himself. And I'm just like, Father, I pray over this young man. I pray that whatever spirit is over him, that you send the Holy Spirit and that you ignite the fire within him to return to you. And he just sat there. When we got on the bus, he sat in the front of the bus and I sat in the back of the bus. Because God said, go to the back. I'm like, okay, because it's one of the long buses. And it's not even the pretty bus either. It's the older, longer bus. So we get up to the front. I get up to the back and I sit down. And the lady next to me is not in a good mood. She's kind of mad. And I didn't know why. I thought it was because I was sitting there, because I sat down across from her. And she was like, Turns out she was mad at the bus driver because the bus driver was taking his time getting to each stop. And she's like, oh my gosh, this man needs to hurry up. He's going to make me late. He's going to make me miss my bus. But she wasn't talking to me. And this is the conversation she was having in her mind. I realized what it was because God led me to talk to her, and then she opened up about what she was going through, and about the struggles she was facing, and about the things that she was having to go through. And I just sat there like, oh, okay. Because I never know what I'm going to get when I talk to people and they start spilling their blah. They can't help it. God makes them do that. I've experienced it myself. So I wasn't really engaging with her per se. I recognized her because I think I'd seen her a couple times. Both times she was with her son, and both times it was during the day. And so we get to the first time I saw her, she was talking to a man on the phone. And the second time I saw her, she was with her son, and she wasn't on the phone. And this is the third time I've seen her. And she always kind of glared at me. And so we get there. First off, the bus driver parked like a whole foot away from the curb. And my little legs, I had to like literally jump off the bus. And I was like, whoa. So we're walking, her and I, because she gets off on the same place as I do. And then she takes the other bus and she goes to Chandler, because that's where she's going. And so I'm walking, she's walking fast because she's trying to get to the bus stop. And I'm walking with her, kind of. And she's telling me about, I have to get up at 3 in the morning and I have to go to work and I have to take 3 buses. And I was like, I completely understand. I've been left stranded before by the bus. And it is the worst feeling in the world because you don't know how you're going to get home. And I said, and I was like, I agree with you. These bus drivers, they don't care. They don't provide the service they're supposed to be providing in a way that they're supposed to be providing it. Yes, God has sent me on the bus because they're not treating his people correctly. They charge the ones that they're not supposed to charge. It's a public transportation, and they treat you like you're the scum of the earth because you don't have a car, because they have to drive you around. It's like, but you have a job, and your job is to serve us with transportation, and you're doing it with a bad attitude. There have been many who have talked to me in an unpleasant way, yet I continue to smile and to bless them and show them love and mercy, because that is what God wants me to do. And so I was in agreement with her. They don't do the job that they're supposed to do. And as we're getting to the crossroads where she has to cross the street and I'm going straight, I went past the light where the walk sign is, and where you're supposed to hit the button so that the light will change. And as I'm walking, God says, turn around. I'm like, huh? And I turned around and I hit the button for her. Like, what? So I hit the button and she looks at me and she goes, thank you, sweetheart. That was nice of you. And she goes, but I'm going to cut across. And I'm like, I've done that too. I said, I don't wait for the light sometimes. Sometimes I just, if there's no traffic, I run. Because when you're trying to catch the bus, you don't have a choice. You have to do that. And she just looked at me. And she goes, God bless you. Take care. Be careful out here. I said, you too. You too. Be careful and God bless you. And she pulled out a cigarette because she was stressed out at this point. She started smoking. But it went from this woman being angry and upset to being happy and loved and unjudged. And now she was going to wait for her next bus. And I prayed to God. I said, God, please do not let that bus leave her. No, not let that bus leave her stranded. She needs to make it home to her son. And that's when I realized. That's when I realized. I said, that's why you had me stay later at work. Well, I realized it this morning, not last night. Last night I got home, drank a couple glasses of wine, went to bed. But I realized this morning, that's why. That's why you had me go and you had me stay later than I should have. That's why you had Robin give me $5. That's why you had me go to the bus. And Lucifer was trying to intimidate me to call an Uber to get out of there so that I wouldn't have this interaction with this woman, to bring God to her life, to show her that she wasn't a bad woman. And so, as I'm sitting here and I was thinking about that, God had me open up my book, and there was something I wrote yesterday. And so when I was at Dunkin' Donuts yesterday morning, he revealed to me why he had me reach out to my ex-husband. And you see, no one in the woman who raised me's family knows that the children that she carried, the children that she calls her daughters and her daughter and her sons, are not the children, are not the biological children of the man who took responsibility for me, my uncle. I call him my dad because he raised me as his daughter. God revealed to me that he took that ability away from him of having children so that I would be his daughter, so that he would love me with the love of a father and would treat me with love and patience and understanding. Because God knew that if he gave him children, he would not love me the way he loves his own blood children. And because the woman used to tell me, blood is thicker than water. Blood calls blood. And I always knew that even though she was being mean to me, that God was speaking through her to remind me that my bloodline calls my name, calls me home. And I never felt home with her because she's not part of my bloodline. She's not part of the family that I'm supposed to have. Her children, I took care of them like they were my siblings because they are my blood. How can that be? Those children are the product of infidelity with my dad's brother, his younger brother. Now he has two brothers. He has a middle brother and he has the youngest brother. The youngest brother is my dad. He was 15 when he had me, when he got my mom pregnant. So there was a conversation between the older brother, which is my dad, my uncle, and my grandmother, because they did not feel that my dad was in a mature enough state, being 15, to handle caring for a baby and raising her. So he was in agreement that my uncle would be my dad, and that on all papers and all documentation, it would reflect that my uncle was my dad. And my dad would be my uncle. And he was willing to take that position in my life. And the people that know these things aren't with us anymore, except for my uncle, well, my dad. And God had been showing me who the father of these three children is. I met my Uncle Richard. When I saw him, I realized my brother is the spitting image of his dad. Yes, my Uncle Richard and my dad, the man who raised me, look similar. Facial features, the complexion, facial hair, they look similar. because those two are very close in age. The youngest brother also looks like them, but he looks more like my grandmother, and he's much younger. So his features are a little bit different. They're not the same as the oldest two, because the oldest two are really close together. Now, my brother and I are born just a year apart. He was born August, I was born July. I was born in 75, he was born in 76. But we don't look anything alike. We have features that resemble family, but we do not look anything alike. I don't look like my siblings. I don't act like my siblings. I don't. So when God revealed to me that it was my Uncle Richard who was their dad, he led me to post something when I was 3.5 cups in. He took over, and I remember posting it, but I don't remember exactly what I said because I didn't write it. And so I had to go back and I had to read it. And in that post, I put the truth. When I asked God if I could delete it, it was because it had done its job. My uncle had seen the post, and he knew the truth. I didn't see him online again, and he wouldn't make it past February. He passed away last week from the heartbreak that he felt for the things that he had done against his brother. That is why the anger, the hatred that my dad felt for his wife, because he knew that she had been unfaithful. He couldn't. He tried. He tried very hard to accept that these were now his kids, but he couldn't. He couldn't. He revolted against it. So much so that he ended up giving up taking care of me. He forgot his promise. So when I went to go live with my dad for 6 weeks, and I finally told my dad, because God prodded me too, finally told my dad the way this woman treated me. I told my dad about the sicknesses, and he goes, I had no idea about any of it. And he said, he was supposed to take care of you. He promised. He failed you. He failed because he promised that he would take care of you. I had never seen my uncle, my real dad, angry. Not once in the entire time I've known him. I've never seen my real dad angry. And when I told him what this woman had done to me, he was angry. He was so very, very angry. And because the conversation started with him asking me, Adam, I told my mom where I was. And I told him I can't call her and I can't talk to her. And then I told him why. And then he told me, you don't have to. I will protect you. You can stay here as long as you need. He wasn't counting on his wife, though. The woman that he's living with, because they're not married. Okay, so back to today. The reason he had me speak to this man is because, remember, this woman created her coven. The woman who raised me created her coven, and my ex-husband was part of that coven. And since they have now lost connection to me, and that's what I felt like. He was salivating. He was drooling over the fact that I was now calling him, and it was disgusting. I was disgusted, and I was asking God, I'm like, God, why do I feel disgusted? Why do I feel like filthy? Why do I feel gross? And he showed me the saliva coming out of his mouth, and he was like, He couldn't even talk because of how much he was just like salivating over the fact that I was back, that I was not hiding anymore. And so what God revealed to me yesterday morning when I was in Dunkin' Donuts, the reason he was the one I reached out to is because he's going to take the seed that I planted in his head. Because God had me reveal to him that the real father of those 3 kids is my other uncle, my Uncle Richard. And my father, my dad, is my real uncle. And he asked me, then who's your real dad? And I'm like, there's only one brother left. And he's going to go back and take that information filled with God, filled with the truth of God, and he's going to plant it in the middle of that coven. And that is going to unravel everything. She's done. That is why I had to go back in reverse. Now that I am stronger, now that I have my faith in the God that serves me and I serve him, now that I have my strength in my Lord, now that I have the truth behind me, within me, and I am strong enough to speak the truths of the secrets that were kept for generations, for no longer can the truth be hidden. The truth must come to light, for God is requiring it to. I planted it, and he's going to run back to that covenant, and he's going to blow it up. Because God is going to make that seed grow, and he's going to get them to fight amongst each other. The gnashing and the biting of the teeth, the gnawing. They're going to turn on each other. Her children are going to turn on her and tell her, how dare you tell us for all these years that he was our father, and the whole time our father was someone else. And we lost the opportunity to spend time with him because you kept it a secret. Because he just passed away last week. I love my uncles. They're good people. They're good peoples. And this is how God brought all of this together. So Esther had to choose. Okay? When Mordecai came to her and told her, hey, we need you to go before the king. And she's like, but the king hasn't called me. If I go before him, I could die. Look deeper at the meaning. And he says, well, just know that if you don't go to the king,